Okay, so welcome back to Convos with Clara. I'm here with Professor Goss today. She is a Kevin D. Gorder Professor of Public Policy at Duke's Sanford School of Public Policy. She's pretty well known for her research on how and why people get involved with politics, and she's been one of my very best professors to date. I was so lucky to be in her class, Public Policy 301. It was political analysis for public policy making. And her classes are often centered around why some people's voices are heard more than others. And 301 had an emphasis on analyzing political engagement through her research. So that was really cool. She's written a ridiculous amount of books and articles and serves on the board of various political associations and attended both Harvard and Duke. But on campus, she's really widely known for her compassion and her classroom engagement and her ability to really connect with students, which is really what drew me to her as both a friend and a professor. So thank you for being here, Professor Goss. I'm happy to have you. Um, but yeah, I'd love to just start by having you tell us a little bit more about what got you into academia and why you decided to study and write about political engagement, and make that a really core part of your career. Where did all of this come from for you?
Well, I never thought I would be an academic, and this is a second career for me that I entered when I was, let's see, my PhD program. I was in my mid 30s and started at Duke when I was, let's see, uh, 40 years old or something like that. So yeah, how did I get into academia? That's a really long story. I don't think you have that much time, but I think it boils down to I had been a journalist and was getting decided to learn a little bit more about public policy since I was covering it as a reporter and didn't know very much about it. And then ended up with a really wonderful mentor at Duke who said, you should get a PhD. Maybe you could be a professor. And so that's sort of how it started. And when I went out for my PhD program, I was working with another mentor of mine who was writing a really, really important book at that time about civic engagement in American public life and what he perceived to be a pretty kind of widespread decline in engagement, both, kind of political forms of participation, but even the kind of social forms of engagement that, help bring us together across boundaries and within communities. And so I just got interested in that, those sorts of questions, and I've really explored them through topical areas. So I do a lot on, as you know, Clara, on gun politics and a little bit about gender and politics. And now I'm working on kind of philanthropy in the nonprofit sector. So, but I think what ties it together is this idea of being an engaged citizen.
Yeah, cool. So from reporting to academia, where did you start out with reporting? Was that something you did out of college, or like where did you do
Yeah,
reporting?
I was on my high school newspaper, and then I was an editor on my college newspaper, and then I moved to DC after college, trying to get my break in journalism. And that was back when there were still some journalism jobs. There were still newspapers. There were these
Yeah.
paper things that would like land on your doorstep. That was a long time ago. It took me about a year to get a job, but I stuck with it and got a lucky break. And so I just thought I was always going to be a journalist. I'm somebody who really likes talking to people. I like asking people questions.
Mhm.
I like, being able to think about lots of different ideas. I think people's stories are really interesting. So
Mhm.
I think the I I kind of think that what I do now is really not that different from journalism. It's just a different kind of style of research and writing, but
Mhm.
I'm still asking interesting questions of interesting people. So it's
Yeah.
a real privilege to be able to do that.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I'm pretty passionate about that too, which is why I do this on the side of school just to sort of fulfill that need. So I guess what's it like for you being a woman in academia, especially in political academia right now, with everything that's been going on and everything that was going on during our class and election season? Like what has that environment been like for you? I guess both positives and negatives.
So you're saying as a woman, as a female professor?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who studies women, and I am a proud feminist, and have worked with and feminist organizations in a volunteer capacity throughout my life. I've also been somebody who's been really lucky to have good male mentors. And, that is not to say that I don't think there is sexism in academia, like in every other realm of life. And, obviously have been affected by that. But I've been, I think, luckier than a lot of women in the sense that I've had wonderful mentors, including male mentors who have supported me. It's been interesting for me to watch as somebody who's been teaching for about 20 years. It's been interesting to watch younger women and their kind of thoughts about gender and, intersectional understandings, of course, as well. And it strikes me that this is a little bit of field of what you asked, but I think it's relevant. So I feel like there is this kind of new kind of, for lack of a better word, gender consciousness among younger women, like college age women, more so in the last few years than, even 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. And it's been interesting to watch, and it's something that in the back of my mind, I think I might study at some point, because I'm curious about where, what's accounting for what seems to me kind of cyclical kind of feminist consciousness among college women. So when I was in college, we were kind of on the tail end of the second wave movement, and we definitely had, a feminist consciousness, and we were organizing around women's issues and that kind of thing. And then I think it kind of faded away for maybe the next generation, but now it seems to be coming back with the Gen Zs. So I think, it's important I always say that, America's not a democracy, it's a democratizing nation. And, there's always more work to be done around, inclusion of all voices and perspectives, including gender and, and the ways that being female intersects with or being non-binary intersects with all sorts of other identities as well.
Yeah. Has that ever posed, I guess, a challenge in the classroom as things like ebb and flow and things change and everything is ever evolving? Like, it's almost like what you teach, you can't quite recycle lesson plans, I guess, like as the years go by, because everything changes every single year. It's not like it's math or science and it's pretty, standard. So
that's true. If you're teaching American politics, you have to have a new syllabus every semester. I can tell you that. I think when you started asking about teaching, I immediately thought about the students in my classrooms. And, I would say when I was starting out teaching, this was maybe 20 years ago, I was, the whole time I've been teaching more or less American politics classes, different themes, but pretty much the same stuff, and at similar universities. So all that is controlled for. I would say that women used to be much quieter in the classroom. I used to have to sort of take women students aside and say, why you have so much to offer, you just wrote this brilliant paper. Why don't you participate in class discussion? And I'm happy to report that I don't have that problem so much anymore. I don't, there are some students who are more participatory and some students who are quieter, but I think there's much less of a difference by gender now. I think women are much more engaged and willing to state their opinions confidently and participate in conversation than 15 or 20 years ago. So that makes me happy. I still want more students to participate actively, but at least it doesn't feel like it's so tilted.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I saw, I guess I don't quite have the citation, but I saw some study that was done on Duke's campus that said that Duke women end up graduating less confident, like leaving Duke less confident than they entered it, which I think is really interesting and kind of telling of the environment. And I mean, I'm happy to hear that, it's improved from before, but if that's the way that it is now, I can't imagine like what those numbers looked like previously.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that study and wanting to know more about it because it was obviously really upsetting and disturbing. And, I think that I think college life is just really hard for students of your generation, so much harder than it was for us. We had pressures and, whatnot. It just sort of goes with the territory, but I can imagine the kinds of unique pressures that you guys are under. And I think social media is a huge part of it. And, that's going to hit, probably anyone who's, vulnerable in any pre-existing way is going to probably be especially affected by social media. I worry a lot about that. I worry a lot that this should be the best 4 years of your life, and I worry that students are just so worried about grades and appearances and measuring up, and that you're just you all are just missing this amazing set of experiences. But there's I feel hopeless at trying to get that message across, and I know that I just think the systems are failing students in some ways, and that's on us, right, as the people who create and administer the systems. So I spend a lot of time trying to think about how to break those down, to make it a little bit more pleasurable for students.
I understand that. And some professors like yourself are really good at doing that. I mean, balance is important. And speaking of, how do you sort of, I guess, find that for yourself in between writing articles and books and research and teaching and all these other things? How do you, I guess, how does someone or a woman in academia find, I guess, time for herself or time for other things? Like, what is that like for you as a professor? And now, like in the Zoom era, has that changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that I'm not very good at balance. So, I'm a good Gen X, dutiful oldest daughter, and say yes to a lot of things and try to do a lot of extra work. But I think what students may not appreciate about what professors do is that teaching is just one piece of our portfolio. And we obviously have to do the research, but then there's this whole thing called service, which you can think about Duke and the Sanford School or any academic department as being kind of like a mini democracy that needs to be run by volunteer labor. So, we spend a lot of time, kind of tending to the institution of, recruiting and hiring people and running programs and starting new initiatives. And, and then this is all true at the university level as well. And then it's true in our profession. So we're all on, committees for conferences and, professional associations and so forth. So there's a huge amount of work that occupies, of just trying to keep our at various levels of enterprise running. But, I think so to answer your question, what do I like to do when I'm not doing work-related stuff? I love to travel. So that hasn't gone that well this year, I must say. That has been a bit of a challenge. I have traveled from my home office to my kitchen and back a number of times, but that's not really what I think of as travel. So I love to travel. I mean, I'm one of these people, I count the number of countries I've been to. I want to go to 100 countries before I die. And so I'm kind of love just immersing myself in other cultures and learning from people whose perspectives are different or systems are different. So I like going to other capitals. I like understanding how different, healthcare systems work around the world, and, that kind of thing. So that, and I also spend a lot of time with my friends. So I don't know if I'm allowed to give advice, but my advice to Gen Z women is that your female friends and your male friends are going to be the most important thing in your life, probably alongside your family, maybe sometimes in some cases more there for you than your family. So, my college roommates are still my best friends. We go on girls' weekends. We're planning one right now. And, I spend a lot of time, going on girls' weekends and talking to my friends on the phone and on Zoom now. And, that's been a steady and nourishing presence in my life. And it's something that I feel really strongly about investing in. So, having friends from who have known you throughout your life at all different phases, and, have your best interests at heart. And, I think that's something that I've always valued, I think, and invested in. And I think it's, just in COVID times really just become even more important and obvious how important friends are.
Right. I think everyone's been forced to sort of take a second look at what really, really matters during this pandemic time. But I guess more on the professional side, I've always been wondering this, honestly, since I was in your class. Have you ever considered involvement in any sort of like local, state, federal government sort of position? Has that ever been on your mind before?
Yeah, I have thought about it. I've done a couple of short-term stints with the federal government. So the first time when I was actually a Duke Master's of Public Policy student, I worked with my summer internship for USAID, the Foreign Aid Program in Costa Rica, and what I did there is sort of related to my research. I did a project talking to nonprofit organizations about how they worked with the U.S. government aid program. And then I did another short stint for a year when I was finishing my PhD, working at the Corporation for National Community Service, which administers the AmeriCorps program.
Okay.
So it's kind of the federal bank for all of the federal community service programs, AmeriCorps, Vista, and some of the programs for seniors, service learning programs for younger people, and so forth. And I really enjoyed both those positions. I think I really, really admire people who are civil servants. I think we are really lucky with the quality of the civil servants in our federal government, and how ethical they are, and how committed they are to their work, and how innovative and creative. And I think the negative stereotypes of like lazy bureaucrats like could not be more wrong in my experience. I mean, could not be more wrong. As far as running for office, I'm not that interested in that. I just don't think it'd be a good use of my skills, and I guess I'm not somebody who likes to sort of put myself out there and be at the center of things. I'm more of a kind of work on my own. I like to think and write, and I love teaching as well. But I think I don't think I'd be a very good politician, honestly. but I really want students to run for office. So I'll be hypocritical and say, yeah, it's not for me, but why don't you do it? Also, be a campaign manager.
Yeah, there you go. Well, cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Professor Goss. I really enjoyed learning more about you and hearing about. I had no idea you were a reporter. That's so cool. So that's been awesome for me to learn. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your time being on here.
Thank you. It was a real honor to be asked to do this, and I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for all of your contributions to Duke and to the rest of your communities, organizations, and so forth.
Thank you.